Hi everyone, good evening, and let me present on the stage our amazing panel discussion that consists of professionals working in the space industry, and they will talk about the amazing opportunities that space opens for business. Please, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Alina. Hi, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, we're really excited to be spending this Friday afternoon with you and talk about such an exciting topic like space. So, my name is Valerie. I'm a founder of the VSpace Media, that is a consultancy firm that offers services in PR and marketing for space industry. I'm going to be share this panel together with Stephan Reckie of Angelus Funding. Stephan, please say a few words.
Hi, great honor to be on this panel, especially with this amazing co-panelists and having a wonderful moderator such as you, Valerie.
Stephan is going to represent the investment side of space industry tonight. Then we have Brandon, who is currently in Florida. Brandon, say a few words.
Yeah, hi, I'm calling in from Florida today. I'm out here to try to catch the SpaceX launch this weekend, so hopefully that happens. I'll be sharing a space perspective from the entrepreneur's side today.
Thank you, Brandon. And finally, the chair of the top, we have Greg Johnson, the real astronaut. Greg?
Hello, I'm Greg Johnson. I'm happy to be here. I'm wearing my STS-123 shirt that I flew in space 12 years ago with Bob Behnken behind me. He's one of the 2 crew members on SpaceX planned to launch tomorrow. So I'm very excited about the launch, just like Brandon. I wish I was in Florida, but I am in quarantine here in Houston, Texas.
All right. So I see that we have the Q&A here. For those of you guys that are watching us right now, could you please let me know how many of you watched the Launch America 2 days ago? You can just simply type in something like, yes, I did. I just want to really engage with you. Since we're doing this online, it's really hard for us to be speaking without actual real audience. So please give us some heads up. Tell us if you've been watching this or not. And if not, whether you're going to watch it tomorrow, the second attempt. We would like to welcome as many questions as possible. And I also want to let you guys know that the best question will get a little gift from me. That is going to be a book from my personal space collection called Packing for Mars. So let's add a little incentive to make this discussion more live and more exciting. Please ask us questions, let us know what you think. And yeah, we would be really, really excited in having this conversation with you as well. So what we witnessed a couple of days ago was really, really profound moment in the entire space industry history. Not only this was the first time in many years when the US launched US astronauts from the US soil. It was also a perfect example of collaboration between the public and private sector, and that is huge. See, for many years in the past, space was really focused on governments. These were basically countries and space agencies working with each other. So what we saw 2 days ago was really a big step towards welcoming private enterprises in the entire space arena. And I really hope that this would be just the beginning for the really massive future ahead for private companies to be doing stuff together with governments, public sector, and space. I would like to focus this discussion really on the opportunities that space industry brings. And well, let's start with this one. Gentlemen, tell me, why space is such an exciting place to be right now? Stephan.
Well, first of all, space is cool, right? So getting access to space is something that you never think that you have possibility for. But the cool part about it is a lot of things happen in space that affect our daily lives. So our lives are very dependent on access to space. So giving someone access to doing business in space, I think, is one of the coolest things. And we'll talk about that. And it's very possible to do.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. To be honest, everybody who is working in space industry, at least the ones that I met, were all really excited about space personally. And that, I think, what really makes this industry so, diverse and so exciting, because people have this genuine excitement about it. It's not like fintech or AI, and nothing wrong with that, but it's really hard to imagine a child that wanted to be a financial advisor for some big corporation when he was small, versus someone who's been dreaming to go to stars from really early age. Brandon, what about you? What sort of brought you in the space industry? Why did you find this such an exciting field to be in, to build your career?
Yeah. So I mean, there are two different ways that I could take this, and so the first one's a little bit more personal, and I'll start with that. I'm just the kid that never grew out of wanting to be an astronaut. Everybody goes through that phase when they're a kid where you want to be this and that and that, and at some point everybody wants to be an astronaut, and I never grew out of it. And for the entirety of my upbringing, I knew what I wanted to go to school for. I knew what I wanted to do. I joke with my friends, seriously, that my life goal is to not die on Earth. And while I was in school, in my undergrad, I realized that I wasn't necessarily a PhD to go a traditional academic route of becoming an astronaut or a NASA astronaut, and I wasn't going to be a fighter pilot. And so I was like, all right, well, if I can't go these routes, what other options are there for me to keep thinking about how I can get to space? And that's when I started learning about the commercial space industry and the fact that all of these companies existed, that there's investors, that there are other people, private citizens that have their own dreams and goals to get to space as well. And I thought, oh, well, maybe there's maybe I can get myself to space one day. And the more I explored that, the more I committed to commercial space exploration. And the thing that keeps me involved in it, the reason I still find it so existentially satisfying, is because there's that element of exploration. There's a massive amount of progress. There are more and more people that are getting involved in it. It's becoming more realistic. And that's happening sustainably. People are building real businesses and solving problems on Earth, making life better for people, while still getting us all closer to going to the moon or Mars or somewhere else if we wanted to. So I don't know, it's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, many people perceive space as being this really technical field and really like engineer focused field. But the reality is that there are people from all kinds of backgrounds and experiences that are involved in the overall space industry. So we have entrepreneurs, we have designers, artists, journalists, lawyers, all kinds of professions you can imagine that are working for the industry. And industry definitely needs that kind of expertise. It needs the diversity from the professional point of view. So I think this is kind of one of the takeaways that I really want everyone who's watching us right now to keep in mind, that space is not really about engineers only or astronauts only. It's really a field that can provide a place for anyone. It doesn't matter what your background is, as long as you're excited about it. If you want to do something about it, there is a possibility. Greg, was it also one of your childhood dreams to go to space?
Well, actually, what Brandon described was exactly how it went with me. I'm much older than Brandon, so he's going to get to space. I probably won't get back to space because I just turned 58 last week. So, but when I was 7,
happy belated birthday.
Yeah, but when I was 7 years old is when we first landed on the surface of the moon, and Neil Armstrong was my childhood hero, my number one. And I was inspired at that moment. I didn't think it was possible, but I kept the dream alive. It took a life of going, pursuing that dream. I did end up being in the Air Force, and I was a fighter pilot. And that's how I ended up in the astronaut corps on a similar track to Neil Armstrong, although I'm nowhere near as famous. I'm just one of those bottom of the pond astronauts. But I did get to go up twice. I have to tell you that every time we get to space, it changes us spiritually. And when you get off the planet and you look at our beautiful planet, it's all interconnected. We're globally interconnected more and more every year. And this pandemic that's happening right now is terrible for many parts of the world. But as we work through this, we're going to innovate, we're going to learn, and we're actually going to become, I believe, a better civilization having gone through it. And so these great challenges that we put ourselves through, working together with an optimistic mindset, is how we can advance as a species. And space is just the latest exploration capability that we have. If you think about the evolution of exploration of our seas and exploration of our lands all around the planet, they all came at certain times in our history. And now we're expanding our footprint out into space. It's just so exciting.
Indeed. While we're thinking about space as a way to explore the new lands, explore the new possibilities, we're also exploring a lot about ourselves internally. As you said, the space travel for you was a very profound spiritual experience. And well, I would probably only imagine what it feels like to be out there, but this is definitely a way for us to learn about ourselves, learn about our planet, about the processes on it, how everything is interconnected and how it works and what is our place in it, and so on.
Can I add one more thing, Valerie?
Please.
Talking about the coolness, I've personally witnessed school kids jump out of their chairs hearing Greg talk about space, right? So let's think about next generation beyond you guys, beyond you, Brandon, talking about the kids, right? And how can you actually inspire the kids to be excited about science, right? Technology. But like you said, it's not just that, it's all the other fields. It's contagious, as you can tell. Yeah,
I really like the quote from NASA administration director, I think, was it? During the Launch America, who said that, yes, we need to grow the new generation of Elon Musks, because what we are doing right now is not enough. It's just the first stepping stone. We need to have the next generation that is going to, develop this industry further. So when we think about the industry development, let's just talk quickly about what are the pathways. So for example, there is a young person that is watching us right now and getting really inspired about, well, doing something in space. What are the opportunities for him or her to do that?
Do you want to start, Stephan?
Sure. Well, the easiest one is go work for an existing space company, right? So find one that you think is wherever you are, locality-wise, geographically-wise. Now, given remote capability, go work for one that's doing that. But as we're trying to tell folks here, it's not just limited to companies that are actually existing doing business in space. Think about an idea. Think about a business that you want to start that does business in space, and create it, right? So it's not specifically just technology, but there's a lot of commercialization of space that's out there, and I'll let the other guys talk about that.
And I would add to that going, if, for example, you want to be an astronaut, that's what I wanted to be. You don't just become an astronaut by doing certain things in a certain order. The biggest factor to becoming an astronaut is doing what you love and doing it very well, because we will need all kinds of people. As Valerie has said, I'm a pilot. I loved flying, and I was a good pilot, which was why I was picked to fly the space shuttle. But if I'd come at a different time, maybe my skill set wouldn't have been appropriate. Now we're looking for other career fields. We're realizing that we obviously need to have more medical doctors. We need to have We probably need to have some psychiatrists or people that are very strong in emotional health, because we're learning that when we get in remote situations like we are here on Earth during this pandemic, that the skills, the emotional side of it is extremely important in our productivity. So it's really doing what you love, and any subject area that you love can be connected to space.
Absolutely agree with that. Brandon, do you have
Yeah,
anything to add to this?
Yeah, I'll build on that, and Valerie, to touch on a point that you made as well. So one of the things that I think is the most exciting about the global space industry, or just space sphere in general right now, is that it's moved on beyond just having to be a NASA engineer if you want to go work in space. It's moved on engineering or technology, as we think about it, specifically for aerospace or aeronautics or things related to building a rocket. I think it's important to remember that, like Greg said, throwing back to ocean exploration and Earth exploration, that at the end of the day, those were people with other people going and doing a thing, and that entire time they had to stay alive, they had to stay happy, they had to take information, they wanted to go home and had to be relevant, they had an investor or some sort that was bankrolling their initiative. It was a human operation. And when you look at what's going on in space now, it's more than just build a rocket or build a satellite. It's build a place that we can go, build a place that we can help, maybe bring. It's sociology, it's economics, it's metallurgy, it's architect. Work legitimately and have a real career beyond just being an aerospace engineer now, which I think is very, very cool.
Yes, absolutely. And just to add to that quickly, that we are talking a lot about combining different expertise in education nowadays. So in the early days, it was really important that the person is very good in one specific field. But as we discover more about ourselves, we learn that what's really valuable right now is to be an expert in a few fields, and that fields kind of make your knowledge and your expertise really unique. So, for example, we can think of, let's say, piloting and medicine, or entrepreneurship and 3D printing, or science and design. And the combination of these skills would really, result in some new things, new products, innovation in fields that are already existing, or probably even creating the new ones. Definitely space now has lower barriers for entry and lower costs. What used to cost a lot of money back in the days now is really possible for a small team to pull out. Here in Europe, we've been witnessing some really bootstrap project coming from countries that never had any space industry developed, but managed to launch stuff into space. For example, S-Cube in Estonia was a good example of that. In Finland, we also have this company called ISI that started out as a university project, and then the team sort of like developed the project further, and now it's a big company with like hundreds of employees across several countries. So yeah, I mean, there are opportunities, even if your country is not in space right now, like this is the case with Georgia. That's probably even great. That can be even an advantage, because it's so untapped. If you have a great idea and you have a good team to execute it, you can be the first. You can be the first in the country to start this whole space revolution. And that is really exciting. Okay, so let's say we have a small team in Georgia that has done some research at the university and has some solid idea that they think might work, and they are looking for money to really kind of test and validate it. Stephan, as an investor, what would you tell them?
Well, see, first of all, if there's any government entity that might give them some funding to do some more validation of proof. But But the reality of investing in space, and I spent a lot of time talking to non-space investors, it's nothing different, right? So the basic principles are, as an investor, you're looking for some type of a return, and hopefully you're looking for some impact society. So I think that the problem is space companies or space entrepreneurs only are talking to space investors. I think they should be talking to the broader range of investors. So the basic principles of investment stand true for space. Used to be was very expensive, but the problems are a lot eliminated when access to space has been reduced.
Valerie, I'd like to piggyback on that notion of the access to space has increased over time. If we think about the evolution of the airplane and where we were 100 years ago and where we are today, and let's forget about the COVID thing. This is kind of giving us a little trouble with airplanes right now, but we'll get past this. But it'll probably end up making airplanes better, with better filtration systems and more awareness about any potential virus. So I think the airline industry will bounce back better than they were before. But nonetheless, if you think about only the very rich and very rare opportunities and rudimentary airplanes 100 years ago, and now everybody's flying everywhere. And space will be the same. I don't know if it'll be 100 years, if it'll be 300 years, or whether it'll be 50 years. But we are expanding that frontier, and it's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I can also make an analogy with the automobile industry. So in the beginning of the 20th century, it was really a lucrative thing. Like, not that many people were able to afford a car. And it's only because the government, together with the private companies that were manufacturing cars, such as Ford, for example, from the US, only after they sort of sat down together and agreed that, okay, we need to make this available for everybody because the long-term benefit is huge. Only after the automobile industry became so, much bigger and so much more affordable to everyone. And I honestly believe the same thing will happen with space. I think it's already kind of on a good trajectory towards that, considering the amount of startups, the amount of investments in the field is growing every year. There's a lot more money in space than ever before. Every year we're hitting the new records in terms of numbers. So it's really exciting time to be doing something in space. And I think we lost Brandon. Brandon, are you with us?
Nope, I'm still here.
Okay, very good. So you had, tell us a little bit more about your personal experience as an entrepreneur. Like, how do you get clients? How do you get investors? How do you manage this whole crazy journey?
I wanted to go back and answer your question. So this is perfect. So I got my undergrad in astrophysics. So I got started on the space science side of things. But like I alluded to earlier, I knew that I wanted to go the commercial route and eventually start a company. And so I worked for a string of space startups and some not space startups as well, but things that were still relevant to a high-tech industry. I was the first employee. I was the 20th something employee. I was all over the place. I eventually had the opportunity to launch a company of my own as well. So I've been a founder. I've gone through fundraising. I've helped to secure some of that and create the foundation for a company. And after that experience, I now am a consultant paid to go and help other companies go through that same process. So I've raised my clients over the past year and a half now, over $100 million from space and not space investors. And this is in the space and not space industry. I help founders come together, make sure they're the right team. I help them find the first customers, build the first proposals, move through that pre-seed, through that Series A, Series B stage of maturity. And I think to go back to the question that you had just asked, you're a team of people, you have a cool idea, maybe you have an interesting technology that's young, it's not a very mature technology, and you want to figure out how you can start a business with that. I think first and foremost, you need to do some homework as to whether or not your technology that you're trying to commercialize is actually solving a problem that people would pay for. Be honest about, is this just a cool piece of tech that I just spent a bunch of time researching and I love it? Or is this something that is actually solving a pain point out in the world? Is this something that could actually make money? So go talk to customers, go talk to the people that would be buying and using your technology, and learn from them more about what their actual problems are. Would they actually pay to have a solution to fix the problem that they're having? Don't pitch your technology, don't pitch your idea, learn from them, ask them to pitch their problems. And then you can take that back and think about how do their needs affect the design of what you're trying to commercialize. And as you move through that process, then you can much more intelligently design a product, but you can also go and have a much more constructive conversation with an investor, because you have to remember the investor has a job to do, and their job is to make money on their money. And so you need to be able to convince them that if they give you money, you're going to give them a lot more money back and within a certain amount of time. And if you can't convincingly articulate that, then it's too early to go talk to the investor. So the best place to start is go talk to your customer and really figure out what they want, and then go back and figure out how you can turn the technology that you have into a real product.
Very often the customer for space companies is a government. And could you maybe tell some of your experience of how did that work out? How do you talk to governments if you are a startup?
If you're a startup, okay, so my advice is going to be very specific to being a startup. If you're a startup, you cannot build a business with the government being your only customer. Absolutely not viable. Too unpredictable, too dynamic. It's not interesting for investors. You're not going to be able to reliably generate the kind of returns that an investor will want.
Brandon, I'm losing you.
Yeah, Brandon is frozen to me.
Okay, I think you're back.
I can hear you now.
Am I back?
Yes.
All right, I'll wrap that up and then let you guys talk. Long story short, it's a great way to get started, but you can't base your business model on that. You have to have a path to going to the commercial industry and finding real private customers. You might always have a government element, but it can't be everything.
And it can't hurt to have the government element, right, Brandon? Because you can get that government funding, non-dilutive funding, to start. Yep. So it's going back to that.
You just can't predicate.
Yeah. Also, just these examples that I brought up earlier from Estonia and Finland, two really non-space countries. Partly, one of the reasons these companies succeeded in their countries was because they got a really good support from the government, both financial and advisory support. So yeah, in one way or another, whatever you're doing in space would probably have to go through government somehow.
Yes.
Yeah, but I know that Greg, a question to you. I know that you've been involved with connecting companies to the ISS, which is open for working with private companies. Could you tell a bit more what the opportunities are there?
Absolutely. And let me see if we can get this high-tech capability. I want to show everyone the International Space Station. So bear with me here, and let's see if I can do this successfully. You probably should see my. Are you able to see the space station? Is it rotating?
I cannot.
I cannot see this.
If I close my eyes.
Okay, so let me try one more time. And I won't waste much time here, but it's so exciting to see the International Space Station that I must share it with you. Okay, how about that?
There we go.
Okay, so the International Space Station is probably the greatest engineering and scientific achievement of our civilization to this point. It is truly an international laboratory. There are 16 primary countries involved, but there have been over 100 countries that have had some experiment or some relationship to a company or a government space agency doing research in outer space. The space station is about having a permanent outpost off the planet. And so that function is very similar to maybe an outpost off the coast of Spain as we were exploring across the Atlantic Ocean centuries ago. We have been up here now on the International Space Station for 20 years. And in that period of time, we've had between 2 and 13 people living and working on the space station. Right now, we have 1 American astronaut and 2 Russian cosmonauts. And the SpaceX launch that's going to happen tomorrow, hopefully, will augment them with 2 more astronauts on the new Crew Dragon vehicle. But what's really interesting about the space station is it's not only solving problems about long duration exploration, it's also solving problems here on the Earth. It travels around the Earth every 90 minutes and observes over 95% of the populated land masses of our beautiful planet. And we can see patterns and do things on the space station that you can't do anywhere else. And because humans are on board, we can use our innovation and creativity to solve problems that would have to be programmed into a robot to solve. And so this facility is going to be up there probably for another 10 years, and other facilities will follow. But this is the very first step, the first outpost of infrastructure in space. And it's not just the Americans, it's not just the Russians, but it's the entire world's space station. And with that, I will stop talking about the space station, but I get so excited, so incredibly excited about the International Space Station.
Yes, absolutely. And as we're approaching the 2028, I believe there will be some new twist or new kind of development in that entire International Space Station endeavor, as it's probably going to open for private companies even more than it is open now. Then we're also talking a lot about the Artemis program, right? In the US, the very big one on the moon exploration. So I'm sure there will be a need for all kind of innovation, all kind of new products and services related to moon. But looks like we're a bit, we already exceeded our time quite a bit, but I've got 2 questions so far. And that is Mariam asking us, you mentioned about emotional side of space, from real space experience to future plans. My questions are regarding to that side. What does it feel to be in space, Greg? What's your first thought or emotion when you look down on Earth?
Okay, well, those are 2 different questions. I'll answer the second one first.
Yes.
My first emotion was hysterically laughing. I was so amazed to be in space and have my arms floating. And my first launch was at night. And so when we came off the external tank, the jets of the shuttle were firing us, basically moving us away from the tank. And these fireballs were going away from us in all directions. It was like being inside of a firework. And that experience was unexpected. And I just started laughing because I thought it was so amazing. And I had that smile on my face for the next 16 days because every day I was wowed by something that was so crazy. The first question, what does it feel like to be in space? And I think you're probably asking about weightlessness. And weightlessness is, it's almost like a dream when I think about it, because we don't experience weightlessness here on the Earth. We can't turn the gravity switch off like we could turn the light switch off. But if you can imagine that you turned the gravity switch off, everyone would start floating out of their seats. And we'd be uncomfortable because we're not used to that environment. And somebody would push on somebody and people would be flying all over the room. And if it was outside, you'd keep going up until you ran into something. Well, you'd probably be in some sort of orbit, so you'd probably eventually come back down. But truly, being weightless is amazing, and it makes work fun, and it makes play a lot of fun. But it also scientifically changes materials and processes differently, so we can learn new things. And I'll stop there. It was a profound experience to be weightless, and your hair, Valerie, would float up. It would be so funny. It'd be beautiful.
This is so inspiring. Honestly, it sort of like makes me want to go to space right now.
You need to do it. You need to go there if you can. You need to. It's worth it.
Yeah.
It was worth the wait.
I remember interviewing one of the founders, actually the founder of Zero to Infinity, a Spanish company that is developing an air balloon. And they are playing around with the concept of space tourism quite a bit. So the founder told me that the whole reason why he's, doing the space tourism side, which is probably not really doing that well from a business point of view compared to the other services, but he's still kind of trying that because thanks to space travel, people get to experience something called empathy effect. So when they look down on Earth from space, they see it as one living organism. They see that there are no borders and everything is interconnected. Something changes. And I think this is like this feeling alone and this knowledge alone would probably help us as a society so much that this is something we really should pursue. Okay, we have another question from Mariam. From your point of view, how awareness about space should be raised in societies which aren't open to new changes for intense post-Soviet Union countries? Okay, I see where you're heading with that. How awareness should be raised in the societies?
Well, can I just jump in? We are in space now, right? So we're living on a planet. So we have to deal with space on a daily basis. So maybe that helps the awareness question. It's part of our lives. I mean, you spend your nighttime when you look up in the sky. I mean, it's just like looking at down to the sea or down to the ground. You look up. It's part of us.
Exactly. And I mean, it all starts from really early age, from education and school. And don't remember the name of the Polytechnical University in Georgia, but I read that there was one that has a space research institute in it. So this, development of this institution alone would be probably a good start. Some success cases in the industry is also very motivating. Like the reason why everyone is so hyped about space right now is probably because of figures like astronauts, figures like Elon Musk, figures that are doing some really amazing stuff in space. And again, because, probably the state of affairs with space industry in Georgia is not that advanced yet. This is a really good opportunity to be the first, the first who would start this whole space movement in the country. Why is it crucial for business and market success to break stereotypes about future and get rid of social frustrations? Okay, let me read this once again. Why is it crucial for businesses and market success to break stereotypes about future and get rid of social frustrations? Well, my answer would be to just really, try. Never mind frustrations, never mind anything. It's just really a matter of doing stuff that we love. Stuff that we were talking about earlier today is really comes from passion and from the willingness to do some cool things with your life. So is there anything you would like to add, gentlemen, to that?
I'll add something.
I'm not sure I fully
Yes, please.
Yeah, as we try to understand, because it's a very complex question.
Yeah, it's not
but
an
I think
easy
I
one.
know. Yeah, but I think I know where you're going with it, Miriam. One important factor, I think, and I talked about this a little bit with the environment of innovation, and it's all around us in our world today, and in space, and that's why I spent a little time talking about the space station. But we didn't reach that point by not making mistakes, by having failures. And I believe that innovation is closely related to the rate at which we make failures and then learn from those failures and then build on those failures to be opportunities. And so I would say, don't be afraid to take some risks and try new things. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, of course, but the people that are going to first go to Mars might not be Elon Musk, because they will be building on some of the innovations that came from SpaceX, and then they're mixed with new ideas of innovation will leapfrog us to the next level. And I'll stop there. Don't be afraid to fail, because you will, and you'll learn from it and pick yourself up and do better.
Good one. Yes, yes. Yeah, this was a really, really deep one. We'll probably talk a lot more just by answering that one question. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Do you think there is any way that the country of Georgia can become eligible to be a space nation? Of course. Any country is eligible to be a space nation. The other question is that, yeah, probably there isn't much going on, but there are plenty of opportunities to start. One thing that we haven't touched upon was space data, and I think this is a huge one for especially those countries that don't have the huge capabilities of, launching rockets and training astronauts to space. But what they can do, they can use their brain power to, use the brain power skills and educated people to take the data that we are getting from space, from satellites, and turn it into an application that would benefit their country here on Earth. One simple example on top of my mind for a country like Georgia would be to use space data to analyze vineyards, because I know Georgia is a pretty, big in wine production, and Georgian wines are world famous. So data from satellites can be used to monitor the conditions of the vineyards and to predict how the weather is going to change in the next couple of days, which areas should be watered more or which areas shouldn't. What is the best place to expand the vineyard that you currently have? I mean, the opportunities are really limitless. And this is just one example. There are so much more. So much more things that one can do with space data, many of which is actually open source. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah. If I can kick that off. So I think one of the easiest ways to get started on that path is to focus on the strengths that you already have. So maybe Georgia doesn't have a great reusable rocket history or experience or something like that. But I mean, to play on your example with the vineyards, maybe it has an excellent, highly technical, highly, knowledge required agricultural industry. And so there's a lot of knowledge into, defining and building and maintaining these, micro ecosystems. And we're going to need food in space. We're going to need biological systems in space and environmental control and life support systems, where ECLIS is the acronym for that in English. And so, maybe there's some kind of way that you could pull expertise from building and maintaining a beautiful, perfect vineyard and figuring out how to automate that in some way, shape, or form that might in turn enable automated growth of plants on something like the International Space Station, which is an area that's actively getting funding from the US government right now. We're trying to learn how to better grow plants in space. So again, using that as an example and throwing back to my comments earlier about this being a people problem, anything that is relevant to keeping people alive while they are going and doing a thing in another place has a market and a business opportunity. And so, look around, see what other opportunities there might be in materials development, or like you were starting to get to with data, data analytics or data analysis. In software engineering, or maybe it's some other part of the value chain here entirely. But you can be very creative about that, and you should own that niche and figure out how to connect that to space and then promote the hell out of that.
Absolutely. We have a question that I think relates to what we're talking about right now. That is, what data do satellites are able to collect now? Anyone wants to answer this one?
Anything.
Do you want to start, Stephan?
Well, anything from actually looking underground. There's opportunities to look below the Earth's surface. Satellites can look for anything visual, heat maps, weather prediction. There's technology that data that's leveraged to detect poaching and wildlife preservation. A lot of human lives saved through flood detection, those kind of things.
There are also very specific instruments that are becoming smaller and more sophisticated, like hyperspectral imagers or synthetic aperture radar imagers.
Right.
You mentioned infrared imaging. There's also the very high definition visual imaging. But when you can also take all those data and then interleave them and fuse them to get even more interesting information. And now that we can compute according to Moore's law on an exponential rate, we can actually slice and dice data up in space, and then what the information comes down, because there is limited bandwidth to get information down, but it is of high quality. It's the nectar of information. And if you can find a niche where you can develop a sensor or develop an algorithm that takes all the different types of data and creates very valuable information, it can be worth millions and billions of dollars.
Yes, absolutely. And I think nowadays pretty much, well, a lot of industries are using space data to advance their services. So maritime, financial, insurance industry, agriculture, IoT, you name it. It's really, it really adds this competitive edge to all of these industries. Really.
How about dating, right? Dating uses space data, right, for location. Right?
Exactly. It's one unexpected example,
Sure.
but a really good one.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Your expeditions are still running during quarantine. Greg, I think this one is for you.
Okay. I don't. Oh, your expeditions are still running during quarantine. Yes. So when you say my expeditions, they're our expeditions. Our expeditions, the world's expeditions are still running real time. Right now, we have, as I said, we have one astronaut from the U.S. and we have two cosmonauts that are up there in space. But
From
sometimes we have, from Russia. But sometimes we have astronauts from Spain, or we have astronauts from Japan or from Canada. We even have an Icelandic astronaut, Bjarni Tryggvason, who's been up there. So we're all in this together.
That's right. I think, the news that we've been seeing earlier this week and that we will be seeing tomorrow as well also prove that, quarantine, no problem.
Well, I mean, the space station's up there.
Yeah.
And so the quarantine or quarantine is not going to affect the space station. They're living and working up in space doing their jobs, and the minimum essential people that have to support them are manning their stations in the control rooms here on the ground.
Yes. Okay. We have two more questions, and I think we should wrap up after that. So what do you think is actually possible to make Mars colonization happen? I see so much obstacles like oxygen, food, energy. How can all the essential things can be arranged? That's a big one. Brandon?
Yeah, so given my limited knowledge that I have, and also acknowledging my bias where I'm now working with a nuclear power and propulsion company, developing propulsion technologies to get to Mars faster. One of the biggest problems that we have right now is not whether or not we would be able to sustain life on the surface of Mars. I mean, we do it on the International Space Station. For a much shorter amount of time, we've had astronauts alive on the surface of the moon. We have people living in very remote and extreme environments here on Earth, like down in Antarctica. We can figure that out. One of the big problems that we have right now is getting there. And getting there fast enough such that radiation doesn't seriously harm the astronauts. Now, whether or not you want to make this a shielding problem, or if you want to make it a propulsion problem, where do you design a spacecraft system that has the shielding around it to protect the astronauts during the course of their 2 to 3 to however much longer month journey is, or do you potentially, avoid that cost of having to build a very, very massive spacecraft and just move very quickly and have an incredibly advanced propulsion system like one of my companies are working on right now. Getting there is actually a bigger problem, I think, for us than staying.
Yeah.
And I think I might debate with you, Brandon, on that. I would say that that is one of the challenges is getting there. I totally agree. But we do, and the question talks to things like oxygen, food, energy. And I would just say, on our Space Nation team that I work with Stephan on, we have an expert on our team who gave a talk about Mars this week. And water can be the key to all of those problems, because the essentials of water can be broken down to help create energy. We can potentially find ways to grow food. And the atmosphere can potentially be adjusted, or we can learn how to harvest the very thin CO2 atmosphere of Mars, and also build structures maybe into the regolith where we're shielded from radiation and the extreme temperatures. All those problems are big challenges, but we believe that the key is water, and we have found water now on Mars, which will help us solve some of those problems.
Yeah, I would also like to add one important thing in the whole Mars exploration topic. That is, of course, economic benefits. We can develop technology. We can, find a way to bring water to Mars. But I think the really driving force for the entire Mars exploration would be, the economic value. What can we get out of it? Are there any precious resources that we can use on Earth? Is there anything that would help businesses to maximize the returns? I think, this one is a really sort of crucial one. We need to figure out why is it that we want to go. And after that, I think many things will become
Can I offer one thought to really expand our minds? Once we get to the point where we can explore the solar system, Mars could be the most important transportation hub for vehicles that are traveling around the solar system and the galaxy. So again, we have to develop a lot of technology to get to that point, but I think that's just a matter of time. It probably won't happen in my life, but Mars could be that most important hub for transportation, space transportation into the deep of space.
Yeah, this is really involves some long-term thinking. This whole Mars.
Right. That would be absolutely.
Okay.
But if you,
please,
I just say if you don't dream about it, if you don't think about the possibilities, then they never can happen.
Exactly. All right. Next question. What is the biggest challenge for countries to success in this industry? I guess, what is the biggest challenge for countries to succeed in this industry? Well, I'd say for small countries, it's somewhat hard to compete with big heavyweight players like US, China, Russia, Japan. But as Greg mentioned earlier, there are around 100 countries that have been contributing to the entire ISS development. So everything's possible. I think the biggest challenge is to just, the biggest challenge is to overcome not doing and just start doing something in this industry.
And I would say that let's not make this a race. Let's make this a cooperative thing, just like Greg was saying. The ISS was cooperative, so let's forget the country borders, right? I know there's intellectual property and security issues, but can I just talk about GenSpace just 30 seconds?
Please.
So the idea behind GenSpace is to pull together a very founder-friendly network of space ecosystems around the world, breaking the borders, breaking the silos, breaking the agendas that each individual country or group or entity might have to make it very cooperative. So as Greg's saying, we'll never be able to use Mars as a launching point or a settlement place if we don't act together and cooperate. I think innovation is most effective and productive when people are open-minded and cooperative.
Yep. Very good. Thank you. Stephan, there is one more question to you. What are the major criteria for space-related technological innovation to be funded?
Again, it has to be able to, you have to be able to explain your product or your direction or your project very simply so people can understand it. And it has to be principled as a business. So that, like Brandon was saying, you have to show that you've spoken to customers, you're going to be able to make money, customers are agreeing to give you money, and as an investor, you're going to be able to get a return from it. It could be relatively patient because typically things in space take more time and more money, but you have to show that it's a business. So it's the same principle and lens of any other type of an investment. I just want to make it clear to any investors that are listening too, that don't be scared of investing in space. The fact that there haven't been any unicorns yet in space doesn't mean that you won't be able to be successful financially.
Exactly. All right, let's pick the final question from here. Is there some know-hows from cosmos specialists we can implement on Earth to better handle pandemic in the future? Pandemic question.
Are you going to jump on that, Stephan?
I was going to let you, Greg, because especially all the ISS.
Okay, well, so I'll answer it this way. It underscores the importance of us viewing our planet as its own spaceship. We are all interconnected. We should all strive to be crew members and not just passengers along for the ride. Everybody has to do their part. And this pandemic, the key to getting through this is working together and not pointing fingers and blaming. It's solving the problems. It frustrates me when I see political fights over this. This isn't about politics. It is not about borders. It is about us all working together and identifying the problems and then stepping through those problems and solving them. And so this pandemic is a perfect example of spaceship Earth needing to work together.
This is a really good one. I would like to add that there was one research on Ebola pandemic some time ago where the space data was used to monitor the movement of birds. And basically it was, so those birds that they knew carried viruses were marked and then monitored to see how it spreads. So this is kind of one of the concrete examples of what space can do to, help reverse the effects of pandemic and to monitor better how things develop. One other example, I think telemedicine. That is really something that is used a lot in space. And I believe thanks to this, couple of months in isolations, people will probably try to figure out what they can do with their bodies to understand their bodies better, what they can do like from the health point of view themselves without going to doctors first, to kind of be able to assess and identify the problems that they may have And yeah, I think this entire healthcare industry will probably be, transformed in a way. And there will be some really exciting space tech used in that. And I think at this point we'll have to probably conclude our discussion. I really didn't want to end it with a pandemic note, so let's just maybe in a few words give some words of encouragement to our viewers and remind them that space is a really exciting place to be right now.
Okay, Valerie, I think ending on the pandemic is not as negative as you said. I think it's, if we think about it positively and believe that we will be better as a result of it on the other end, and we will have all become more digitally fluent, we'll have better telemedicine, we'll have better awareness of our bodies, and we also realize that we're globally interconnected and need to work together. So I'm in a period of optimism right now.
Very good. Stephan?
And when I look at space, I look at limitless boundaries, right? So just think about that. So hopefully we've inspired you that doing business in space or getting access to space or thinking about anything about space should open up your mind, give you the ability to be boundless and infinite.
Absolutely.
If I could end with one more thing too, on entrepreneurial note, I would recommend from an actionable thing that you could start doing today. Don't be worried about your competition. Don't be worried about being behind. Don't be worried about being in a place that doesn't seem to be as strong of a space player as other parts of the world were, because those places were once not space players, themselves, and they had to build it up in their own way that made sense for what, was going on at the time. And I think the task or the challenge right now is not to figure out how you.
Yes.
So you need to own it. Go space.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. I think on this positive note, we are going to conclude this panel. Thank you very much for watching and participating. Thank you very much for all your questions. And if you have any further questions, comments, or is there anything else you'd like to discuss with us, we're available. You can send us a message or you can book a meeting through the Pine tool. I know there is a possibility for that, and we can have a quick chat and explore what is it that you are doing and whether we can do something together. Thank you all very much, and I'm going to end the session now.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for starting conversation about space in Georgia. And actually, it was a very great conversation. And also, we will going to put a Discord chat, Discord link in chat, so everybody could join and we can discuss all the topics, because there's a lot to talk about space. Since it's a very rare opportunity for us, for example, Georgians, even though that we have international audience, to talk about space and explore it and see it from another perspective. So also for a positive note, we have a very private question from David Bowie. Is there life on Mars?
And we're going to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yes, let's go.
Hopefully so.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.